Does Corvo's folding sword from Dishonored work? My gut instinct is no, but maybe I'll be surprised. Seems legit. It doesn't actually fold and unfold by mechanical means, but by morphing the mesh. Interestingly, the opening animation looks more plausible. There's still some trickery going on, but that looks possible. There's a recent video by New York Artisan who made this design in real life. Interesting. So that works nothing like a sword in the game due to the constraints of real-life physics, but it clearly works. Or does it?
With a flick of the wrist, we've got a sword.
It takes a bit more than one flick, but yeah.
Just like that.
Oh boy. By the way, whatever I'm about to say, including possible sarcastic snark, is not meant as a criticism of his work at all. In fact, I find it quite impressive that he managed to come up with a design that actually works.
Just
the fact that it folds in when he just lightly taps it on his shoulder is concerning.
and see what I have to improve for the second version. Open it up. First pivot comes out, the other part locks into place as well.
I mean, clearly it doesn't lock, other than friction lock.
This piece prevents the blade from going anywhere. Most of the force will be in this direction, pushing against the metal part right here, so it should be relatively stable.
The bottom part is stable, yeah.
It was supposed to really lock, but right now, because the metal of the outer cladding right here is pretty worn off, it's actually more of a friction folder.
And that's a general problem with these kinds of extra complex designs that you often see in fantasy settings. You know, it's super cool and everything, but the more complex you make it, the more interlocking and folding and extending and otherwise complicated mechanisms you have, the more likely the chance of something wearing out, breaking down, the whole thing failing when you possibly need it the most. Which is why, without a doubt, a fixed blade is always going to be more reliable. I mean, there's really good locks that are pretty much impossible to fail, but whatever works in knife size doesn't upscale so well to sword size, because now you're dealing with much different forces. You have a much longer lever that amplifies the forces involved. You're having concussive impact as opposed to just slicing and whatnot. If it already folds in when you lightly tap it with your hand, it's useless against an actual target. You know, be it flesh and bone or the armor, let alone, or another weapon, this is immediately going to fold.
See, just slapping it on here was already enough to bend it in, so I'm pretty certain that this part won't cut as much, but we've still got this one right here. Rather soft target.
Yes, but unfortunately that's not the part you want to cut with because of leverage. If you want to actually deliver a proper cut, there's a certain sweet spot which varies from blade to blade, depending on its weight distribution and blade profile and all of that, but it's generally the upper third. You know, cuts with the middle are much less effective, and cuts with the bottom third, forget about it, basically. Yeah, that's what I expected.
It's pretty safe for the wearer because the blade can't go back all the way to actually hurt your hand, but...
Yeah, that's important. Now, the mechanism in the game extends. The blade itself doesn't actually fold, but it comes straight out. To me, it looks more like the Assassin's Creed hidden blade that I've covered in another video. Link down below if you haven't seen it, by the way. That is a lot better than I expected.
So I added some 6-in-1 butted mail. Okay.
It fails against the mail. There's just too much resistance.
Fold it inwards.
Which means most likely this would also happen if the blade were to hit bone, I'm thinking.
But obviously you can just...
Yeah. Okay, if it folds in with even a light thrust like that, yeah, if it hits bone, it would definitely collapse. You definitely could not fight with this at all in the real world, but it's quite impressive that you managed to get this design to work as far as it does.
It's a lot sturdier than I thought.
You must have had really low expectations, and so did I, if that counts as sturdy.
The friction was a lot, significantly more when I started out with the video.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is a lockback design maybe might work, but the problem with that, of course, is then you have to disengage the lock manually. That's generally the problem. If you're able to just fold it back in without reaching up and touching it and disengaging the lock, this is not going to work, which of course is kind of the problem with this design. Now, how much of a problem is that really, considering that it's more important to get it out quickly? You can take more time folding it back in to put it away. Really, the important thing is how easy is it to access it? Because there is definitely something to be said about making a short sword this compact. It would be quite difficult to conceal a fixed blade short sword. I mean, unless you're wearing a coat and you put it on the inside, which has its own problems because that limits your mobility. Either way, it's fascinating. Check out Njord Artisan's full video. I found another video by Silent Cottage with a different take on this design, 3D printed, and this works exactly right, including the twirl, and rather than folding, it extends straight out the front the way it does in the game. This is really cool. Would you be able to make this with metal parts? I have no idea. I doubt it. I mean, you probably could, but again, it would likely be very prone to failure. You pull this lever open in the handle, which is different from the way it works in the game, but again, that's to be expected. So this is extremely cool. That is very well done. And with the string, you can even twirl it. I very much doubt you can do it any better than this in order to really function properly. I mean, as far as the folding goes, if you made this of steel, I can't imagine this would work terribly well. Now, for one, you have a bunch of extra parts, so this would be a lot clunkier than a regular short sword and thereby be a disadvantage. As an assassination tool, probably not that big of a deal. Reliability would be a big deal, though. If you sneakily position yourself in the shadows, ready to pounce on your victim, and you pull it out, deploy it, and it just goes out halfway like a limp noodle and fails because some part has worn off or broken or whatever, and now the entire mechanism is useless, then all you can do is end them by throwing the entire thing at their head. There is a way to make this sword work, as shown by Alien Go Boom. You just have to make it a fixed blade. So if it's a regular sword, no folding, then yeah, of course it'll work. Even though there are plenty of challenges posed by real-world mechanics, I do very much appreciate this design lore-wise. It makes a lot of sense for an assassin-type character on the run who needs to be able to conceal a weapon and carry it easily, and who needs to primarily use it for takedowns. I mean, he does fight with that, or at least you can. It's not desirable to fight enemies head-on and fence with them, but that might still have to happen sometimes. But either way, within this world and its lore, it makes perfect sense to have a weapon that is collapsible, that can just be tucked away in a pocket or something without printing much. It can be easily concealed. It's not going to interfere with acrobatic movements. It's readily accessible without getting in the way. It sure makes a lot more sense than what looks like a wheel lock pistol that would take a little bit longer to reload than just moving your hand down for a couple of seconds and bringing it back up. It is very much necessary for the gameplay. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Again, check out the videos linked down below, all the sources, and thanks for watching. Take care.